I'm Tom Jackson, live music producer from Nashville, Tennessee. I work with artists on their show, getting them prepared for tour, teaching artists, singers, bands to get better on stage, to emotionally connect with their audience. I have a live music method that I teach. It's a process. I've been doing this about 20 years. The artists I've worked with, many are household names, and I also work with many indies. So it's across the map. And I also help artists with tour support in their when they're out touring or playing gigs. And today I'm going to teach a little bit of my live music method. It's a method that I've learned. I'm not smart enough to figure it out beforehand, but I've been teaching it for 20 years. So after a while, I just kind of turned around and looked and thought, okay, this is how I do it, because it's developed into a method, a system. Now, the system is not to box anybody in. In fact, Goethe says, working within limits, mastery reveals itself. So there's form to this thing, but there's plenty of room for spontaneity. So let me give you a little quick overview of the method. The method is simply, it's like building a house. When you build a house, the first thing you need is a plan, a blueprint. And it's the same thing with an artist getting ready to play a show or getting ready to play a tour. You need vision. You need a plan. You've got to get an idea of what you want to build before you just go out and play. Most people just go out and wing it. So I talk about getting a vision for the show, pulling that vision out of the artist, what they see, what they're trying to accomplish, things they've liked in the past from other artists that they can make it their own, because there's really nothing new under the sun. How to create moments in that show, and then how to put that set list together so that it makes sense. We got to have a plan. So that's the very first thing, a blueprint for that house. That's the first thing. The second thing is a foundation. You've got to have a good foundation for that house. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today. But the foundation are the things that we go through mentally, emotionally, psychologically, even spiritually, before we go on stage, while we're on stage, just getting prepared to go on stage. And we're going to talk about that today. The next thing in my method is what I call materials, tools, and skill. It's basically, if you want to build a house, you got to have the materials to do it, the tools to do it, and the skill to do it. And so on stage, what we want to do is be creative. As creative as we are musically. And I'll ask you this question, and I ask this every time I teach somewhere to an artist. Do your songs all sound the same? And the answer always is, well, of course not. I change guitar tones. The song's about this subject, different rhythms. Just, it's different. But then the question I ask is, well, then if they don't sound the same on stage, why do they all look the same? And there's usually dead silence in the room. Because after 2 songs or so, the artist does the same thing from the same place over and over on stage. And to an audience, it becomes boring. It's not as interesting. You would never think of playing a rock song, acoustic song, a ballad, all these different songs with exactly the same guitar tone, the same strumming, the same everything. But that's what we do visually to our audience. So the idea here is, it's the technical things. It's understanding placement on stage. It's being creative. For example, I ask this question oftentimes to guitarists. If you played a solo, the same solo that you play from behind your pedals, but moved it over to that side of the stage and delivered it, and I told you that the people would get it and you'd sell 10 more CDs, how many of you would do it? And everyone raises their hand. I'm not changing you. I'm just changing the presentation because that's what that song requires. And it's not putting on a show, it's being creative. So the third part of my method is what happens on stage, how to use a mic stand, angles on stage, how to get places on stage, own a stage. There's all kinds of technical skills that an artist, in my live music method, needs to learn so they can be creative on stage. And at the end of the night, all this translates into is this. Oh my gosh, it's over. More! That's what we want. So if we don't learn these things after 3 or 4 songs, an audience we start losing our audience because the songs don't sound the same, but they look the same. And if we're not married to our audience, and this is huge, we're not married to our audience. Married meaning, some of the artists I work with have sold 10 million records, and everybody knows their name, their household name. They're interviewed, they know their lyrics. So everyone sings along with them. They come out and they start singing their first song. Everyone jumps to their feet, starts singing along. You come out and say, come on, everybody, sing along, and they do this. Because they don't know you. You're not married to them. They're dating you. So our approach to the show and being creative is hugely important to the success of your career on stage. And generation of your revenue comes from the stage in your career. Just saw an article just last week. The majority of an artist's revenue comes from what they do on stage. So that's the third part of my method. We've got the plan, we've got the foundation, we've got the materials, tools, and skill, and then after the house is built, we move in. How do we make this show our own, have our own personality? How do we, and so when we move in, we decorate the house the way we want to decorate the house. We put the furniture in that we want. The music that's played through the place is the music that we listen to. It has a distinct personality. It's not homogenized. So that is my live music method. And I can't get into that whole thing. That's 30 hours of material. Today, what I want to talk about is developing confidence on stage. That's a part of the foundation. That's the thing that, well, we're gonna talk about today. Confidence to me is massively important. It's massively important to you, obviously. But let me give you a reason why it's important, because that's what an audience picks up on. See, the first part of this whole process, or for you Canadians, process, is understanding your audience. If you understood your audience and what they expected of you when you walk in the building, and you knew you could meet those expectations, dare I say exceed those expectations, you'd be more confident. If you knew your show was going to exceed their expectations, like if you're a restaurant owner, and you know when people come in and taste your food, they walk out talking about you because it's awesome. Their expectations, you exceed them. You're going to start developing some bona fide momentum in your thing. But if you don't meet those expectations, then you're going to just be spinning your wheels in your career on stage. So what does an audience expect? Well, the first thing is this. Why does an audience go to a show? They go for 3 reasons. Write these down. They go to be captured and engaged. That's the first thing they go for. They want to be present. They don't want to be thinking about schoolwork, work tomorrow, kids, keys, cars, other things in their life. They want to be completely captured and engaged. And now some of you are thinking, well, slam dunk. Every time I play, I'm captured and engaged. That's the problem. Every time you play, you're captured and engaged. It's not you being captured and engaged. Of course you're captured and engaged. Why wouldn't you be? You're on stage, your adrenaline's pumping, you're singing your songs, you hear your voice. There's some people looking at you and you're getting some applause. I could dig that. But it's not about you. It's about them being captured and engaged. So how do we capture and engage an audience? That's the first thing we have to know. If you know how to capture and engage an audience, some of those technical skills I talked about, the right script, meaning the blueprint, the vision for your show, if we work through all of those things, then we're on our way to capture and engage an audience. So that's the first thing. Understand that your audience goes to be captured and engaged. They don't want to be 3 songs in going like this. That's not captured and engaged. They're on their way out. You've lost them emotionally. You do not have an emotional connection with them anymore. Second reason the audience goes. They go to experience moments. You think they go to hear songs, but really what they do, or hear you sing, but really what they do is they go to experience moments. Everyone wants hairs on their arms to raise. They want to laugh. They want to rock. It's an emotional thing. They want to experience that emotion. Again, you're going, well, that's a slam dunk too, because every time I sing this song, I get chills on my arms. It's not about you. It's about them getting that. So how do we create those moments, fun moments, musical moments, audience participation moments, moments that move people to tears. How do we find those moments in a song and create them? Now, here's where the mistake happens. And I'm in Nashville, king of, it's all about the song. All about the song. Well, let me say this. Songs are massive. They're huge. But every song that you sing does not create a moment. In fact, a little diversion here. A hit song to me, this is my analogy. Hit song to me is when, think about it, where do you listen to the radio? You're driving down the road usually. So that song's got to come out of the radio with a bunch of distractions and capture you emotionally. And that will drive you, in the old days, to the record store, now to the internet or wherever, to pursue and find out who that artist is because that song moved you. That is creating a moment in the car that'll drive you to that product. Well, we want to do the same thing with our live show. Simple as that. So how do we create those moments? And those songs that you sing, you've got 12 songs in a, let's say, in an hour show. Trust me, all 12 of those songs just do not create moments. Now, let me say this. Because if every song that you sang created a moment, you'd probably be the next Beatles. So until then, what we have to do is learn how to go inside our songs and dissect them so that the audience can find the moment that is inside that song. And we've got to rearrange the song for live so that that moment is communicated. We're talking two different things here. Driving down the road in the car and people sitting and watching. Those are two different things. And if you deliver the song the same arrangement, the same way, it is not going to work. Now, once in a while it works. Magic happens. The planets align. Spirit falls. And it's magical. And here's the problem. You don't know why. So you live off that one moment for the next 5 gigs till it happens again. But the idea is to try and create 5, 6, 7 moments in the night that the audience walks out just buzzing about. And here's the reason you want to create 5, 6 moments in a show, 7 moments in a show, is because everyone's their favorite moment is not going to be the touching one. That's going to be a percentage of your audience. Somebody's going to be the fun moment, just like you go into a restaurant. Somebody wants the steak, somebody wants the salad, somebody wants the fish. They all have their favorites. But if you only deliver up one moment, you're a one-trick pony. You're living off that moment the whole time. And again, some songs create moments all by themselves. They're magic. But those are so rare, it's unbelievable. So what we want to do, and here's the deal. I think it's harder, again, a little diversion. I think it's harder to write a hit song for the radio than anything in the music industry, by far. I think it's the hardest thing to do. But I'll tell you this, the artists I've worked with, and I've been fortunate enough to work with over 200 artists, sold 50, 60, 70 million records over time. And they give me their CD, and I listen to it, and there might be 1 hit on it or 2 hits on it. But what do we do with the other 7, 8, 9 songs on it? What we do is we go in there and rearrange it so that it creates a moment live. And then that drives people back to the table because people want to relive that moment. It's a no-brainer. So the second reason an audience goes, if you understand your audience, is to experience moments, and we've got to create those moments. If we know we've got those moments, we're a little more confident. Third reason people go is they want to have their lives changed. Now, that's kind of like soap here because I don't know how to change a life. I can't do it. But it's something that is, if you go to a U2 concert, you've heard people say this all the time. It was like a religious experience. They don't even know what they're experiencing, but there's a presence in the building. And one of our jobs, and we'll talk about this maybe a little bit later, is to create freedom in the room so that spirit can move. We break it open so that there's something magical happening in the room. You might not be able to define it, but it's there. And if people's lives are changed a little bit, they will become a fan forever. Ever. It's like me going to see one of my favorite movies is Schindler's List. And I saw that movie and it changed the way I thought. So I bought the movie because every once in a while I want to remind myself of what that was like and to be heroic like that guy. And because that's what I want to be like. And if we can do that in our concert, it doesn't have to be heroic, but if we can change their life or the way they look at the world a little bit differently, they'll constantly come back to you and come back to you and come back to you. And they'll become a fan forever. So if you understand that your audience wants to be captured and engaged, experience moments, and have their lives changed, that's the grid we want to run our show through when we get prepared for a tour. We don't just want to go out there and wing it, play some songs, and hope something happens, because that's what we normally do. So, in developing confidence, if you understand that about your audience, here's a couple other things you need to understand about your audience. One is your audience is ignorant. Now, this is actually very helpful for most artists. If you realize that you're not out here having to be perfect on stage. They're not sitting there going, ooh, I like that Mixolydian scale on that turnaround. Or, oh, are they doing the third and the fifth on the harmony on that chorus? None of them are doing that because they're not musicians. They're ignorant. And when I mean ignorant, I don't mean stupid. I'm ignorant when it comes to movies. When it comes to movies, I use this example a lot. Who saw the movie Titanic? You can wave. Yeah, okay. So when that scene had happened, I went to that. First of all, that movie was not fair because that was a chick flick and us guys got sucked in all the way. But because I wanted things to explode, and they did, but later. But it's more of a love story than anything. But if you remember the scene where the ship had broken in half, she's lying on that door, that stick of wood, he's in the water, and the scene was like, Jack, Rose, Jack, Rose. And I'm sitting there watching this movie, holding on to my wife's hand, going, oh my God. I'm going, pull him up, pull him up. There's room on that thing for both of you. I was not sitting there going, ooh, I wonder how the water shimmers like that. And they get the light on it. And how did they cut that wood so that she would be perfectly? None of that stuff. That was James Cameron's job. That was James Cameron's job to go in there and create that moment. And that's your job, or my team's job when we work with an artist, to create those moments that people experience. They're not picking apart all the stuff. The only people watching that scene that were studying it were film students, or film producers. That's it. The rest of us were just caught in the moment. And that's your audience. The only people watching you play that guitar solo and really pick it apart are guitar players. And I say this, don't worry about them because they're broke. They'll never buy your CD anyway. So what we got to do is understand the mentality of our audience. They don't understand those musical things. And we get caught up in that. We make a mistake and it throws us off for the night, or we can't hear something, or they don't even know that unless we tell them we made a mistake. By visually reacting to it or telling them, verbally, which is a mistake. But let me tell you this, your audience understands perfectly one thing, and that's human behavior. And confidence is the very first thing that they pick up on. Now, not consciously, but when someone is confident on stage, they know it. But also when someone's not confident on stage, they know it. It's what I call emotional misdirection. We're preoccupied with their behavior on stage. We don't know what they're doing musically. We don't know the song structure. We don't know keys. We don't know any of that. We don't know if he's playing a Les Paul or a drummer's playing a paradiddle, fiddle-diddle, squid-a-diddle. Doesn't matter. Singers, whether you're singing high C or drinking it, all they know is that person is in charge. In fact, have you ever seen somebody on stage so nervous, you started praying for them? Oh, God, help them get it together. And the answer is yes, because really what you're doing is praying for yourself, because you came to relax, not to get all nervous watching somebody on stage. So what we've got to do is understand what our audience goes for and what they pay attention to. They understand the human behavior. They have PhDs in that. They don't understand music, but they understand when someone's nervous. Why? Because they get nervous too in real life, every day. So we need to understand what our audience is paying attention to and walk in that confidence. That's why it's important to have confidence. See, people come to see people, and I have a saying that who you are on stage is more important than what you do. Who you are is more important than what you do. Now, I'm not telling you to be bad. That's silly. I want you to be great. But who you are is what they pay attention to. Um, so I have this saying that what we need to learn how to do is to love our audience. And I don't mean love. I'm talking about love to me. This is my definition, is the attitude of wanting to give anything you can for the benefit of each individual in the audience. We are there for them. And the enemy of love, the thing that keeps us from doing that, this is where stage fright comes in. The thing that keeps us from owning the stage and loving our audience is one thing. It's not hate, it's self-consciousness. We're preoccupied with ourselves. I don't know whether you believe this or not. You may think it's a myth. I believe it's true. Remember the story of Adam and Eve in the garden. Now, here's what was going on in the garden. And again, I'm not a theologian, so I don't know whether they were in the garden for 2 weeks, 2 years, 2,000 years, 2 million years. I have no idea. But I know this. They were running around naked, and they didn't know it. They had no clothes because they had no self-consciousness. They were not preoccupied with themselves. But as soon as they took in the fruit, they became self-conscious and realized they were naked. Now, hopefully you're on stage not going, oh, I'm naked. But here's what you're doing. You're going, how do I sound? There's the monitor. Oh, that guitar player's looking at me weird. Oh, I hope that guitar player hits that part. We're preoccupied with ourselves. We're not giving to our audience. When they were running around naked and not self-conscious, they were loving each other perfectly. And they're loving God perfectly. They weren't preoccupied with themselves. So we need to walk on stage prepared emotionally, spiritually, to give to people. We have to do all those battles backstage with our head and our heart so that when we hit that stage, the energy is going this way. When we're self-conscious, it's like this. It's all about us. And then here's how, this is typical. It's about us. And then if the audience likes us, we kind of lighten up a little bit. And maybe by the third song, we're relaxing and we're starting to give to our audience. It's backwards. We're the ones that are supposed to come out and start the party. We're the ones that, you don't see Bono going, I hope you like me. So, we need to learn how to love our audience. I had this problem. That I was nervous regularly. And in 19, I was touring with a band. And we were doing 500 dates in this tour, 550 dates actually. And you got to understand this. This was my dream. I practiced my brains out. We'd work our tails off. We marketed ourselves. We got to the place where we were out on a tour that was awesome. The problem was 30 dates into the tour. When I started the tour, I had a 34-inch waist. And 30 dates into the tour, I'm down to 31 inches, losing weight fast. And it's not because I'm so energetic or because it was because I was nervous all the time, self-conscious all the time. I couldn't sleep well. When you're playing a gig every 2 or 3 weeks, I can kind of work up to that nervousness. Or guys have a tendency to be able to compartmentalize stuff for a while, so it runs into the main part of the brain. So I could compartmentalize because it was 2 weeks away for the gig, and I could start worrying about it maybe 2 or 3 days out. But when you're playing every single day, you don't have that luxury. You know you got a gig that day, gig that day, gig that day, gig that day. And so I'm worrying myself to death, literally. And so something had to change if I was kind of live the dream that I wanted to do, which was music. And I'd invested tons of money and energy and years into this. And the thing that was holding me up wasn't the music, wasn't anything. It was that I was not confident and I was self-conscious all the time. So here's what happened to me. Now understand this. You may think I'm bipolar, and I may be. You may think I'm schizophrenic, and I may be. But I think what happened this night, and this has happened maybe 10, 12 times in my life, I got clarity. I got clarity, and I felt like God was speaking to me. Now, I don't mean, Tom, I want you to do this. And there was no angel that appeared to me and said, hello, or, there's no audible burning bush or anything like that. But it was something inside my heart. And here's what happened. It was about the 30th date of the tour, and people were coming in. I kind of looked out the curtain as they're coming in, and I saw myself at the end of tour weighing 6 pounds. All I could see was my heart beating because I was losing weight so rapidly. So I closed the curtain, and I knew something had to change. Otherwise, I was not going to make it to the end of the tour, a thing that I wanted to do with my life. So I closed the curtain and had this conversation with God. Again, it could be bipolar, it could be schizophrenic, or it could be God. It could be all three. Who knows? I talk to myself all the time. I hear voices. But this was pretty distinct in my heart. And so here's how the conversation went. God, I'm nervous. God, what are you nervous about? By the way, no time to dodge the question, no time to get around it. This was serious stuff to me. I wanted to do music in my life. God, no, me. What am I nervous about? The bottom line was, I wanted people to like me. I wanted, kind of like in the Roman days, it was this. Instead of this, it was like, yeah, Tom, we like it. I was trying to please people. I wanted them to like me. I want people to like me. So God's question was, are you likable? It's a question you got to ask yourself. I thought, well, yeah, once you get past this, I'm pretty likable. In fact, honestly, most people are likable when you really get down to the core. There's a few people that bitterness get a part of their life or they're jerks, but overall, most people are likable. I fly a lot. Probably, I'm on the road probably 150 days a year. And one of the airlines I fly here in the States is called Southwest Airlines. And what they do is you get a number, and then you don't get a seat assignment. They basically, you get a number, you get on the plane, and then you fight people for the seat. You try to find the best seat you can possibly do. And I've got this routine that, because a first-class seat on Southwest Airlines is, they have a 3 and 3. That's their plane. Every one of their configurations. It's a 747. And the first-class seat on Southwest Airlines is somebody sits at the window, there's an empty seat next to you, and I sit on the aisle. That's a first-class seat on Southwest. Because if you get that empty seat, because they're usually packed, you're like, yeah! So I have this little routine to get that empty seat. I know when I go on about 2/3 of the way through the process on purpose, find the seat that somebody's already sitting in the window, empty seat here, and I put my stuff down here, and then I lift open the thing overhead bin, and I put my stuff in, all the while coughing, and then I pull out the paper, and I do this whole rigmarole thing as people are walking by, kind of blocking the aisle, the way into the seat. I put it back down, sit down, slam some things. I go this whole routine, so, if I get real desperate, I start drooling, and so that, families walking by going, keep going, honey, the guy's crazy. So that no one will sit next to me. And of course, I have this whole routine, and I finally sit down and go, oh, thank you, Lord, because no one's there, and most of the seats are full. And then inevitably, here comes the guy down the row. I'm like, oh, no. And I'm thinking, there's got to be another seat. There's got to be another seat. So here comes this guy down the aisle, real short hair, tie, straight as can be. He looks down at me and goes, do you mind if I sit there? And of course, inside I'm going, ah! But I go, well, no, not at all. And of course, he's looking down at me thinking, oh, this is going to be great. So this guy sits next to me, straight as can be, crazy, completely different planet than I live on, and he knows the same thing. But here's the amazing thing about it. Once we get into the flight, we start talking, he's a nice guy. Most people are nice people. So are you. People want to like you. You're likable. That's what I decided that night. Once you get past hair, all prejudice stuff, hair, size, color, accents, all those kind of things, people are good. So that night, God, am I nervous? God, I'm nervous. What are you nervous about? I want people to like me. Are you likable? Yeah. Is everybody going to like you? No. Everybody's not going to like you. Everybody doesn't like me. Some of you might be watching this, might go, this guy's a jerk. Well, here's the good news. 97% of the people that come to hear you sing, play, whatever you do, want to like you. They're going there to have a good time. They're not calling up their friends saying, hey, listen, I hear there's this jerk down the street. Let's go see him. No, 97% of the people are waiting for you to lead them, waiting for you to be confident, and they want to like you. You go to a movie hoping to like the movie. You go to a show hoping to like the show and the people in it. That's the whole idea behind it. 97%. It might even be higher. So let me ask you this. I'm speaking to some single guys out there. If you knew, let's say you're coming to Nashville and we're conversing, email and talking, and I said, dude, when you come here, I'm going to have 100 women in the building that we're rehearsing, and 97 out of those 100 are going to be digging on you when you walk in the building. How are you going to walk in that building? Confidently or like this? Hi, it's me. I'm walking in going, I'm here. Where's the 3? Give me some coffee. I mean, honestly, 97 out of 100. Those are great odds, folks. And if you get that in your head, you realize those people you're playing to are waiting for you to lead them, and they're just waiting, and they want to like you. If you can really think about that, it'll make you more confident. And here's the funny thing. Even if you could open that curtain like I did that night, and magically there were arrows over the 3% that didn't like you, and you went out to them and said, listen, kind of scurried out there and said, listen, put on this piece of paper all the things you want me to do so you'll like me. And they'll go, cut your hair, don't yell like that, whatever their deal is. And you went back and did them, they still wouldn't like you. So here we are being controlled by 3% of the people. 3% of the people potentially are killing your career because you're watching them. You're worried about them. Big mistake. And let me tell you who the other percent of the people are. They're bitter old people. That's about 1 or 2% of the people. They got drug along. They didn't want to go. Or musicians. Because they're going, here's what they do. If you're really, really bad, they're going to go, they're not that good. But if you're really, really good, here's what they're going to do. They're not that good. Because you're challenging them. So you're worried about musicians and people who are not going to like you anyways. Worry about the 97%. Don't worry about them. Bring it to them. So I finished a conversation like this. God, I'm nervous. What are you nervous about? I want people to like me. Well, are you likable? Yeah. Is everybody going to like you? No. And I heard this, well, is that okay? And that night in 1999, I went out, felt this imaginary pat on the fanny, and I heard, just go out there and love them. So to this day, that's what I do. And to be honest with you, folks, it's not like I've got it solved. I've been on stage 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 times. And some days I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, I feel insecure, and I got to literally go through what I just did in my head multiple times to get myself prepared. That's one of the ways I prepare myself so that when I hit that stage, I'm bringing it to people. So the first thing we need to do in this context is, not the first thing, understand our audience, love our audience. The next thing is develop this confidence through authority. Now, there's kind of what would I call multiple issues here. First, confidence is a foundation. Confidence also comes from preparation. Oftentimes, in fact, I just worked with a group, can't say who, but out on this tour, they're playing to 16,000 people, and they were not confident enough because we did not have enough rehearsal time. They did not schedule enough rehearsal time to understand it all. So they're standing on stage thinking about what they should do. No one wants to watch somebody else on stage thinking. So repetition is important. That's why part of the method, understanding what rehearsal is and what it isn't, is huge. But confidence is built on preparation, starts with preparation. When you, as a singer, if I handed you lyrics right now and said, you got 10 minutes to learn this melody and these lyrics, and I want you to sing on American Idol, you'd be like, ah. But if you had a week to prepare, wouldn't you be more confident? Of course it is. Of course. So what we want to do is make sure that we have rehearsal time scheduled. And I don't mean just learning musically. I'm talking about your show and everything. If you are confident, you prepared, and the only way I know how to learn, I'm sorry, maybe some of you are unbelievable geniuses, but I've worked with 200-300 artists, and the only way I know how to become more confident and develop the skill to own it is repetition. The creativity, the development, and then you repeat till you own it, and then out of that comes the spontaneity. It's a combination of form and spontaneity. But you'll never get to the spontaneity if we don't have the form and the confidence to deliver it. We got to know also when to be spontaneous, but that's a whole nother class. So, confidence is the foundation of what an artist needs to communicate to an audience by their countenance, by who they are, by their preparation, by all the stuff I talked about. But then let's add on top of that confidence a thing called what I call authority. Authority is a little bit different animal. Authority is not preparation. Now, it's preparation, but it's a different kind of preparation. It's internal. It's something that you've got to wrestle with inside your soul, your heart, your mind, so that you believe you're supposed to be on that stage. This is your gig. Because you can have that without the preparation, and you can be terrible. But if you have the preparation, and you build on it the authority, like, no, this is my gig. And here's my question to you. Why are you playing at the gig and somebody else? Why do you call 20 places? 19 says no, but 1 says yes. I believe, as simple as I can be, faith-wise, you're supposed to be there. That's your gig. That was the one you're supposed to be at. So you're given that gig so you can bring it to people. I don't care if it's 3 people, pretty good, 3 people, or 3,000 people. That is your gig. So that's the kind of thing you need to wrestle with yourself. You gotta go into your heart and say, wait, why am I playing music? Am I supposed to be doing this? This is my passion. I'm gifted towards it. Darn it, this is my gig. So that's an authority thing, and that's something that you got to grow into. You just can't just pop up one day and go, I got it. But confidence, then wrestle with that authority, and then out of this comes the next crowning thing, which is what I call charisma. And charisma, I remember the first 10 years I started teaching this, and I'd have labels and managers come up to me and say, man, really helping them, but I just wish they had a little more charisma on stage. And you can't teach charisma. And I just unconsciously would say, yeah, because I was preoccupied in developing this method of, the technical skills on stage, finding the moments, those kind of things. And then about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I started thinking, well, what is charisma? Well, let me see if I can teach it. Well, I mean, what is it? Because I believe everyone has a spirit and some sort of charismatic thing. I've seen everybody in their element have that charisma, whether it's at a party, whether it's at in a studio, wherever. And so charisma, to me, it can be developed. And again, it's a process. If you go back to, I'm going to use you too as an example, the days, Bono has grown into this charisma. And charisma is by far, the most attractive thing about people. I mean, yeah, there's the outside, he's attractive, she's, that's sex. This is not charisma. Charisma is something, and it's undeniable. When Bono walks out on stage and he does this, and he's getting himself prepared, and he's getting you creating some anticipation to go up and sing a thing, we're like, oh, there's an anticipation and there's a charisma that goes along with it. And you can name artist after artist that you know, that you like, that have that charisma. And that is a developing thing. That just doesn't happen magically. It's something they grow into, and they experience it a little bit, and then they get a little more confident with it and grow and grow. And after a while, you end up, you feel absolutely called to do this thing, and you're supposed to do it with authority. You've got the confidence to do it, and it turns into charisma. But I'll tell you this, and you can make this decision. I have worked with artist after artist. Listen, I've been fortunate enough over the last 20 years to work with probably 200 signed acts, 200 indie acts. And there's a place where we get to that place where we have a choice to make, faith or fear. In other words, are we going to walk in this authority? Are we going to start owning this charisma, or are we going to just be falsely humble and say, no, I'm just going to play my music and let people do their thing? It's false humility is what I call it. False humility is not charisma. No one wants. If you're trying to be humble, folks, if you're trying to be humble, you're not, because you just are, or you're not. But what we want to do is develop confidence, authority, and start owning this charisma thing. And it's something to develop. You just cannot jump on it. Which brings me to the last thing of this whole confidence thing. And it's having the courage, that wall, to take risks. If we don't take those risks, we will never develop that charisma. We'll never walk through that imaginary emotional line that holds us back from literally owning the stage. Because that's what we want to do. We want to be able to emotionally connect with people and lead them wherever we want to lead them. And it's a powerful tool. In fact, I just did a blog on it. No, on my Facebook the other night. I was working with a group, and I think they misused it, learning how to manipulate people, and it scared me for a while. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm teaching people. It's like teaching Hitler how to manipulate people. That's a scary thing. It wasn't that bad, but it comes to this last thing. You have to have the courage to take those risks. If you don't, first of all, understand, back to the audience, no one goes to see somebody play it safe. I got a good friend comes in from Chicago. He calls me up. He doesn't say, hey, Tom, I'm in town. Let's go to the library and watch people read. No. Ooh, look at that. They're reading. No, we go to shows because we want to see something that moves us emotionally, that steps beyond, that challenges us. And if we as an artist on stage don't model that or do that ourselves, it'll be like, it's like going to a restaurant. That's okay. It's okay. But it's not the kind of thing where, like, if I'm going to Toronto. If I go to Toronto, I see some friends and say, hey, I got the night open. Where would you go to a restaurant? They wouldn't say, hey, there's a really kind of okay restaurant. Why don't you go to it? It's really okay. No, they'd say, listen, got this awesome thing. I try these weird spices and all stuff, but it's awesome. Give it a try. Well, that's what an audience goes to a show for. They want to see you take some risks. But you've got to decide to do them. Let me give you an example here. Hold on a second. Okay, normally, let me give you an example here. Okay, let me come back. Okay, we're back. So here's the example. Let's pretend. Now understand this. This is a concept. This is not for everybody that I'm talking to in terms of physically what I'm going to do, but conceptually it applies to everybody. Let's say I've been singing, it doesn't matter, 6 months, 2 years, 20 years, does not matter. I'm standing on stage. Now let's say this, I'm a singer-songwriter, and I'm singing 1 or 2 songs off my guitar, but I like to be humble and not draw a lot of attention to myself, so I always stay behind the microphone stand. So let's say it's a Friday night, I'm opening for somebody, and I got a song, and I'm singing, and we found the groove. It's pretty magical tonight. And I'm standing on stage, and I'm singing my song, and I'm kind of bringing it a little bit for me, and I hear this voice that says, take the microphone out of the stand. And I got a choice to make right here. Do I listen to that voice, that instinct, that creativity, that spirit that says, take a risk, or do I play it safe? And this is where the rubber meets the road, folks, conceptually. It may not be the microphone stand, but this is where the rubber meets the road. So let's just say I'm bold, and I do it. And I can't get into how to get rid of the stand and move all that. But at first, for those of you who I'm talking to, this is your thing. At first, when you walk out here and you have not ever held the microphone in front of people, at first you're like, wow, you feel a little naked. You don't not sure what to do with yourself. It's a little weird feeling. But after 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, you start getting more comfortable. That's the way it goes, by the way. It's a process. Canadians, a process. So let's say it's 4 months later, I've done this 10 times, I'm standing on stage, and all of a sudden I hear this voice that says, move on stage. And I have a choice to make. Am I going to move, or am I going to play it safe? Now, in my mind's eye, of course, I see, you know, as I start moving, if I've got a cord, the cord falls out or something, and it's a risk. But I got a choice to make. Do I have the faith or the courage to take that risk, or do I listen to fear? My recommendation, we know the right answer. But here's the deal. Even if something happens like when you hear that voice that says, take the mic out of the stand, and the stand falls over. Oh my gosh, the stand fell over and the mic cord came out. Understand this, the next day, even if that happens, the sun will still come up. It is not the end of the world. But if you're afraid to take that risk, you will never learn to own a stage and deliver the audience to where they should be in your show. The uniqueness of who you are and being able to lead your audience to that place you want to. So where they say these, it's a 4-letter word, apologize, more. They want more of you. They want more of your songs. They want more of your show. They want more of your product. And now we start developing momentum. So, what we need to do is understand our audience, learn how to love our audience, develop confidence, authority, charisma, and have the courage to take risks on stage. This is huge, and this is the thing audiences understand. They sense it. Communication from stage is 15% content, the words you're singing. Now in a book, it's 100%. On record, it's more than it's not 15%. It's more than that because they can hear the words live. Here's what it often sounds like. 15% is the words you sing. 30% is the emotion or passion you bring something with. 55% is what they see with their eyes. So if they see somebody on stage who's not confident, not in control, by their countenance, by everything they are on stage, it's emotional misdirection. And I don't care how good you are as an artist, you are not even come close to be able to grab those people, develop fans, and start building your fan base. This is a way to build a fan base. I know there's other ways too, but from your show, you can develop a rabid fan base because of who you are on stage. So my encouragement to you is learn these principles, struggle with them, develop them, get yourself prepared so that when you hit that stage, you own the stage. Thanks a lot.